Finished. We did the rest of Henry the fourth. The part one. Went on with the Hotspurs and the. Good to see you guys again today. I remembered my glasses. Oh. Who all's sick?
Yeah, probably after
Are you sick?
Not yet, but both of the kids are, so it's only a matter of time. Yeah. Fevers right now. And general whininess. So, questions, comments, concerns, confabulations? Yes.
Number 11. Actors that want to ask something about similarity or difference between women and like their willingness to go to combat.
Number 11. What seems to be the relationship between intimacy with a woman and willingness to combat? So Act 3, Scene 1, if my infallible memory serves me, is they're getting ready to. All right. Well, you have an answer. Let's do this.
Mortimer is really intimate with his woman, and he's reluctant. He's more reluctant to go and fight, but Hotspur is not very intimate with his woman, and he's like really ready to fight when he goes instantly. So more intimacy seems to mean more reluctance to fight.
That you want to.
Act 3.2, question 4.
Mm-hmm.
How does Henry IV ensure that he'll be wondered out by the people?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about this for a long time today, but it was something about. Anyone remember?
Yeah, he never like goes out into public or lets himself be seen, so it's more of a surprise when he's actually out in public.
Well, it was kind of like he was going to hold himself up as this great king, be elevated and be above the reach of the people, and then it was in contradiction to Kyle's approach, which was to be, favored by the people, of the people, for them, and all that.
Okay. Satisfactory?
I did have a question.
Yes, sir.
How does Hall mean that a limb is chopped off and not chopped off?
Where's that?
Act 4, Scene 1.
Yes.
He's talking about his father's forces not being there, so it's like having part of their army chopped off. It's like a metaphor for the army, not an actual limb.
Okay, so that's how it is chopped off. How is it not chopped off?
It's the last hope.
Hmm?
It's the last hope. If they fail, there's still them to fall back on.
Yeah. It's that discourse of the victim.
What happened to Glendower's forces? I got like two things. That they were not able to muster and mobilize in time was what it seemed like at first, but later they say that he read a bad omen. But
Yeah, it's. I think it's vague. I mean, what do we think? What do we think happened? I mean, the answer is not there, but we do know that Hotspur was sitting there bagging on him, and then
Probably chickened out.
or chickened out, or
He just didn't like him because he was being insulted.
I would have had trouble with all of that. I mean, it's the funniest scene one of the funniest scenes in there when he's Hotspur's clowning him, but.
If he was magical too, couldn't he have like foreseen the future? Like as the horoscope?
Yeah, I think the evidence against him actually being magical is pretty iffy. What is that? I can summon demons from the deep. I can too. Will they come? Yeah, that's a good scene. Is that it? You guys look super enthused today. Yeah.
I was confused. Act 4, Act 4, Scene 4,
Mm-hmm.
when Paul responds to Henry IV's concerns. I thought it was just his brother who Henry IV was concerned about. Because like he was telling his brother to go to his tent or something like that. I didn't think that Hal was.
Act 4, Scene 4?
No, Act 5, Scene 4.
Okay. How does Hal respond to Henry's concern? Did anybody get an answer for that? Yeah.
Well, just sort of like brushed it off and was like, I'm not gonna, go back to my tent just because I have an injury while other people are dying out on the field. I'm gonna go back out.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, Dad gets all motherly. Well, you got a boo-boo. Go to your tent. Hal's like, man, we got some grown man stuff here, fool.
How severe was his injury? Because Henry IV made it seem really bad, whereas Hal's like.
Yeah, and he's still
he's still able to.
He's still to kill the Lady Hotspur, so it couldn't have been that bad. I like to think of it as a boo-boo. I mean, it just depends on how you would play it. It could be pretty bad. Yeah.
Act 5, Scene 4, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the Harry share glory?
Why can't the Harry share glory?
Because they share the same name.
Yeah. There's not enough room for both Harrys. It's the image is the two planets in the same orbit. I guess if they were going the same speed, you could do that in the same direction. Or if they were rubber.
X-Files Scene 1, Prison 4, why did they 4 veto the idea?
So what was the idea that got vetoed?
Going to hand-to-hand combat with Hotspur.
Yeah. And then Henry IV vetoes the idea. How?
Seemed like he wanted them to come groveling at his feet, just say they're sorry, and then pick them off one by one in his own time.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a complicated question. Does he want war? Does he want to protect Hal? Does he is he afraid that Hotspur is just going to wipe the floor with him, and then what? Does he want to lose a war? Does he want to win a war? I don't know. So anything thoughtful on that quiz question, if it is in fact a quiz question? Must have been in a really bad mood. This is a long quiz. Yeah. Act 3, Scene 2, number 7. According to Henry, Hal is to Richard as Henry is to Hotspur. Which is weird. We're going to look at that too. Henry's analogies and his logic just
Yeah, I didn't quite follow.
yeah, it's beyond me.
Man of the king.
I think you need to be analogically sound to be a king in this world. All right. Let's take the quiz. Somewhere out there? All right. Why, so can I, or so can any man, but will they come when you call them?
Hotspur talking to the
Glendower. All right.
Mystified.
For thou dost in thy passages of life make me believe that thou art only marked for the hot vengeance and the rod of heaven to punish my mistreatment, my mistreadings.
Page 4 of now.
Yeah. King, about Hal. How does Henry's strategy to ensure his popularity differ from Hal's? 3 points. All right, well, guess what, guys? I'm not going to, that's going to be a bonus question because, yeah, that's too hard. Anyone got something?
King Henry tries to keep from being overexposed and tries to make himself aware, but Hal tries to make sure people see him as much as possible.
I think the simplest way to put it was like elevated above them or on their level, really.
I hope it's not that simple because we're spending the whole class talking about it.
Well, he wants to make himself as a rogue pontifical, so basically make himself like the Pope. Nobody sees the Pope and they just revere him.
Yeah.
Whereas Hal wants to like make himself a man of people and issue all that and tries to
These are all acceptable answers. All right. Well, maybe not. Maybe it won't be bonus. It seems like it's pretty easy. Who's Mars and Swathling clothes? Yeah. You strain too far. I rather of his absence make this use. It lends a luster and more great opinion, a larger dare to our great enterprise.
Is that about Glendower not coming, or is it about...
Yeah, somebody not
sick
coming.
guy. Whoever was sick, right?
Yeah, I think it was his dad. But I'll take just so long as you're saying that he's taking bad news in stride. Falstaff's troops. Ragamuffins. I thought that that's what I was hoping for because we had that question before. What side were the rebels on when Bolingbroke deposed Richard?
Bolingbroke.
Yeah. Why is honor a scutcheon?
No use to the dead.
Excellent. What version of the king's offer makes it back to Hotspur?
Fight.
Yeah, without the option for peace. Why is Blunt dressed like a king? Decoy. At what point does Hal regain the king's lost opinion?
Saves him. Saves him from Douglas.
Not only that, doesn't kill him when he had the chance.
I didn't put that.
Either way. It's like, see, I told you I wasn't going to kill you. Oh, son. Well, why? Because this is because everybody thought that Hal wanted him dead, right? Because what happens if he's dead? Pay off all those gambling debts. Who are the two stars that one sphere cannot hold? And how does Hal respond to Falstaff taking credit for killing Hotspur?
Whatever.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, whatever.
I thought you said like willing to like joking willing to lie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is we'll talk about this on Wednesday when we start dealing with honor and like why would Hal do that? Aside from just the ultimate slap in the face to Hotspur that Falstaff killed him, and he's all about honor and fame and everything, and that's just, I mean.
Well, wouldn't it, boost his own reputation for modesty? Because everyone would know that Falstaff probably didn't kill him, that Hal actually did, but for him to take it in stride would be like even better for him. I don't know.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think all this. All right, I want to kind of start off and take it a little bit in a different direction. And kind of put it back into our comedy Midsummer Night's Dream frame of mind. And remember the mimetic triangle about we had I believe it was the dominant Y, and then we had the X, which is the subject, and then we had the object A. All right. So we don't really have much of a love story going on here, right? Unless there's one that I'm not aware of. Yeah, so we've got affection. We definitely have rivalries. So what would the object? What's the object of desire here? Yeah, I'll put the kingdom or commonwealth. But at the same time, we also have this sort of subplot of these contaminating women, right? That keep Mortimer off the battlefield, possibly Glendower. So we've got these corrupting women that emasculate you and make it so your army loses, or like really emasculate your corpse. Because remember, it was the Welsh women that we saw at the beginning that were doing the actual castrating of the corpses. So that seems like something. So who would our dominant Y be? Who possesses
Henry IV.
No, we'll put Henry IV. And so, like I don't want to over Oedipalize this because I don't want to lose the meaning of it. But all of our kind of father figures would probably go up here. So we've got all of the different worlds, right? We've got the rebel world, the Welsh world, the tavern world. So
is there like a green world type of thing? Like there's not a forest, but
the tavern world probably kind of, right?
It's kind of like these street.
Yeah, and the Welsh world too. There's magic there. But we have the Lord of Misrule in the tavern world, so I'd say probably both of them in different ways. I'm putting Falstaff up here because I don't know where else to put him.
Wait, so why is Henry IV dominant live?
Because he's currently he's the one that you need to get rid of to get this, right?
To get object.
Yeah. So like in the Oedipal thing, and this is why the Oedipal thing stuck so well, because you gotta get rid of dad to get to mom, right? And then I'm thinking Glendower, sort of, and then maybe Mortimer, because Mortimer has a key to the throne. But I'm thinking not really Mortimer. I'm thinking we're gonna put Mortimer down here, of the ones that want the thing that they want. All right, remember how that worked? They want what they want. So who do we have here besides Mortimer? Hotspur. Yeah. Okay. So we've got. We stop to look at the gassy woman thing. I put the note here on the corrupting women. Yeah, we have to on page 61. We've just got a note in passing because we might not get a chance. So 3-1, 20-something. Glendower. The heavens were all on. I wish I could do a Welsh accent. You don't even want to see me try. It's horrible. The heavens were all on fire. The earth did tremble. He's talking about his nativity. And this is after the fire, so it would be done the same season if your mother's cat had been kittened. I mean, this is some zany stuff. And he says, oh, then the earth shook to see the heavens on fire, and not in fear of your nativity. Diseased nature oftentimes breaks forth in strange eruptions. Oft the teeming earth is with a kind of colic pinched and vexed by the imprisoning unruly wind within her womb. So what's he saying that the big shaking was about? Is Mother Earth passing gas? I mean, can you see this of this big mighty magician guy? And this and nobody ever plays this up to its potential. I think I was looking on YouTube at different, because I've never anybody seen this played? I never have. But somehow it's got past me. Anywho, all right, we're just mentioning that in passing because it's funny. So I think that we've got at least 4 levels of conflict going on here that we kind of got to keep in mind. So on the one hand, we've got the king versus Falstaff versus Glendower as sort of the legit, father guy, right? And they're all problematic, right? Because Glendower's, undercut by Hotspur. and Falstaff by Hal, and then Henry by everybody. Perfect. And then so we've got Hal versus Hotspur, and even we see kind of versus Mortimer when they're dividing up the kingdom, right? But even though these two are kind of in cahoots for the to be sort of the alpha dog here, so we think, and that's not unlike who are those two characters' names in Midsummer Night's Dream? It's like Lysander and Demetrius or something like that. So it's kind of that kind of same action going on. And then, by the laws of mimetic desire, Hal, Hotspur, and Mortimer versus the king, be the king, right? Lots of conflicts going on here. And then we've got this even with the object, so we have this sort of this Hermia and Helena thing going on between the kingdom versus the ultimate woman that doesn't speak your language and just holds your head in her lap and sings to you instead of having to go to war. And then so just kind of keep in mind some weird absences. Like where's Hal's mom? Well, he doesn't really have one, right? I mean, you assume that he probably burst through someone or another at some point, but she doesn't pop up. Not even a shadow of a love interest, right? Or is there? Creepy. That's been argued.
Well, there's no mothers in it, right? It's just missing.
Yeah, so there's just sort of a missing mother, but they're pretty uncontaminated. Falstaff has his he's a whoremonger, right? Or a whoreson, as Hal Livingly puts it, and he's into Miss Quickly, who has a larger role in the second part. It turns out that she is Miss Quickly, and she's funny, right? Because she does all of those. She keeps making fun of herself without knowing it and calling herself a whore. And talking about how easy she is when people look at that, and that's funny too. And then and Hotspur's almost uncontaminated by women, but he's got this little wife that I think he probably loves, which may screw him up. And so it does seem like the less woman that you have, the more successful you are on the battlefield. I could be wrong. All right. Now that we have the background, let's look at the King's quote logic of seduction on page 71, 3-45. So I am going to need a king, and starting it by being seldom seen, and I only need you to read to 59, which would be, I'll stop you, it's at solemnity on the next page. Can I get a king?
By being seldom seen, I could not stir, but like a comet, I was wondered at. The men would tell their children, "This is he." Others would say, "Where? Which is Bolingbroke?" And then I stole courtesy from heaven, and dressed myself in such humility that I did pluck allegiance from men's hearts. Loud shouts and salutations from their mouths, even in the presence of the crowned king. Thus did I keep my person fresh and new, my presence like a robe pontifical, ne'er seen but wondered at, and so my state, seldom but sumptuous, showed like a feast, and won by rareness such solemnity.
Thank you. That's a mouthful, that last. So my state, seldom but sumptuous, showed like a feast, and won by rareness. If you're like me and you make fun of too much alliteration, and you make fun of that. So we know that he's relating. He calls himself Bolingbroke, and he's sort of reminiscing on possibly an actual, possibly sort of hypothetical past. And he's walking with, and he calls himself Bolingbroke, so we know that this was before he was the king, right? And he also says that even in the presence of the king, he was still the object. Right. So and then so he compares himself to a comet, right? And he sets up the scenario of a so it's sort of paradox. It's like there he is, where? So and then he sets up the example of the dad with the son pointing out the comet, right? So we got the son and the dad, and then the thing, the sort of object, right? So we're getting kind of a screwed up one of these numbers, right? So in this image that he pulls up, he's comparing himself to the comet. So where would he be? Where would Bolingbroke be in this image? Yeah. I'll put BB for Bolingbroke. And then this would be dad that's pointing, and this would be the son. Huh. That seems weird, right? Well, let's go. Maybe I'm messing something up here. So the first part, so we got that, and then we switch. And then I stole all courtesy from heaven and dressed myself in such humility that I did pluck allegiance from men's hearts. So he's working on men's hearts, and then we've got what's the gist of this language? I know that because we looked at this before, right? So what are the kind of the key words in these 4 lines? Is it of honesty? Is there a lot of flower imagery? Anyone? All right, and then I stole, what's the key word? I stole, what's the key word? Stole. And dressed myself in such humility that I did pluck allegiance from men's heart. So this is dissemblance, right? He's faking being what? Feigning no. That would make sense. So he stole all courtesy and dressed myself in such humility. So it's humble. One might say modest, if one were to say such a thing. To appeal to hearts. And then so what's the result that his feigning courtesy and covering himself modestly, what does he get? Loud shouts and salutations from their mouths, even in the presence of the crowned king. Catcalls? They're cheering him. He's getting the attention from the regal king. Does this sound like a competition between dominant wives? Or maybe between 2 chicks? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
It could be object A cheering on X to conquer dominant Y.
Cheering on X to conquer dominant Y.
Because object A is the kingdom / mother. I don't know. It wouldn't really
that is kind of, yeah. I see that. Everybody see that? All right. Everybody sees it. Yeah.
Aren't royalty considered like the wives of England? So like, they call themselves?
I wouldn't have wanted to be considered the wives of England. Possibly off the top of my head, dolt that I am, I can't think of any poets were considered themselves brides of Jesus.
I mean, Robert said like Elizabeth said something like that, like she was the wife of England.
Oh yeah, well yeah, Elizabeth said she was married, she was wed to the state. But she's sort of a different thing. Yeah. Okay, let's get to the rest of this. So let's turn the page. Thus did I keep my person fresh and new, my presence like a robe pontifical, never seen but wondered at. So my state seldom but sumptuous. Sumptuous is a strange word. So my state sumptuous showed like a feast.
What does that mean? Seldom but sumptuous?
Seldom but sumptuous show. So you don't get the feast very often, but when you do, it's sumptuous. But so he's writing himself in as a sumptuous feast. Now I know I keep bringing up these Petrarchan conventions and but like to show the appearance of your body and put it and cast it in terms of a sumptuous feast. See how maybe I'm thinking this is a little bit weird? Is anybody like, no, Daniel, this is all you, or does this seem a little bit? Maybe. Well, let's see. Let's keep going. Now, sumptuous is, a big word for describing, like lips and hips and kneecaps and such on the old blazon. Maybe not kneecaps. That would be an interesting thing. So basically, his logic is to act meek and modest, but show a little, but just a little, to arouse interest, so that people will wonder at his sumptuous person. And so this is the father with the son. But this sounds to me, I know. I've got all kinds of issues. Don't get started. But to me, this sounds like the advice that sort of a Machiavellian mother would give her daughter about how to play hard to get men's interest. Your sort of husband landing, right? Yes.
It even sounds like the way he's saying, like, I showed a little, just enough to get interest. It's like,
ankle.
It's
Yeah.
show a little collarbone back to the old days.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Imagination.
A little instep. Yeah. All right. So see, I'm not the only one that's crazy. She is too. Does this work? Does that work for girls? Is playing hard to get work? Or too well? Now, I often cite the controversial David M. Buss study of all of the cultures on their sexual preferences, but he did find that on the whole, and actually in every single culture that he studied, that the perceived ease of sexual access does reduce a woman's perceived marriageability. Not interest, but long-term interest. I mean, that sort of makes sense, right? I mean, there's exceptions to everything, obviously, but like if you know that Susie's well rehearsed. It doesn't mean that she's completely off limits, but maybe like, all right, am I really that great of a guy that I can stop this fall of the dominoes? I don't know.
Well, what about the other way around? How would women perceive men from that?
We'll talk about that. I think that that's more apropos of Henry's of Hal's speech,
Okay.
but we'll get to that. But especially but not exclusively in cultures where virginity is expected at marriage. And depending on your class in this culture, what do you think? What's your guess? Do you think this is a culture that expects virginity at marriage? Nominally, probably depends on who you are.
For the royalty.
Yeah. So, but does this translate to good government? I mean, making yourself the object of desire and showing a little collarbone to keep everybody interested. I mean, does this make you a king?
No.
Because if you're putting yourself as the object, I mean, this sort of, is anybody gonna, you're not the dominant wife. So how do you rule from that? Like, I don't know, like the matriarch mom that plays the, and we'll actually get in this about the victim using victimhood as a weapon, which turns out that my one of my masters, Harry Berger, will be reading, argues that that's just what happens, but we won't get into that just now.
Object, the person who, they could rule indirectly. They wouldn't be the king, but they could work kind of like behind the scenes.
Yeah, but you would kind of need a dominant wife, right? I mean, because if you can't just be behind the scenes. Somebody's got to like enforce laws and stuff, right?
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, didn't he pull like a huge bait and switch though? I mean, like initially he was like, I want to be this duke of this place, and all of a sudden he was like, oh, I'm going to be king.
Yeah.
And then sort of just turned the tables on everything. So he went.
Or the tables turned on him, depending on how you. Yeah.
But he went from being object to being.
Yeah.
He did this to become dominant wife.
Right.
And nobody was expecting it. So. Seems like that's how he enlisted the help of the rebels in the first place. But it is kind of an odd way to put it.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going. Let's see. Maybe by actually paying attention to the text, we can get something. I've got to try that every now and again just to keep the people on their toes. So you get this image of the skipping king. Does somebody want to read the skipping king, 60 to 69? Cliff.
Alright. The skipping king, he ambled up and down with shallow gestures and rash spaven wits, soon kindled and soon burnt, carded his state, mingled his royalty with capering fools, had his great name profaned with their scorn, and gave his countenance against his name, to laugh at giving boys, and stand to push of every beardless vain comparative, grew a companion to the common streets.
Perfect.
In
Yeah, that's good. So what's going on here? So this is so he's contrasting himself with the skipping king, who I guess he means Richard, but Richard really wasn't like this at all. But so he's skipping, ambled up and down with shallow gestures, rash, mingled his royalty with capering fools, his great name profaned with their scorns, and gave his countenance against his name to laugh at jibing boys, every beardless. So his behavior, sort of loose behavior, made him the object of gossip and ridicule. I'm having visions of that girl in junior high again. Because what really starts happening, you know that you've made it when like all the guys in the locker room are like, Susie, right? And then especially if they laugh to your face and you're just like, yeah, you know, like, Susie, you're a hoe. A little bit. Daddy issues. So you gotta keep your reputation. You don't wanna be out there too much. You gotta keep your reputation pristine, lest these beardless boys start jibing at you. You laughing at me?
What kind of junior high did you go to? not high school, but junior high. Susie, you're a hoe.
It was so long ago. I don't even think we had that word back then. I think they were strumpets. Am I really going to take all class on this? So let's go down to 80. When it shines seldom at admiring eyes, but rather drowsed and hung their eyelids down, slept in his face and read in such aspect, blushing, modesty, as cloudy men use their adversaries, being with his presence glutted, gorged, and full. So this is what happens after presenting the sumptuous feast. If you present the sumptuous feast too often, the metaphor then becomes you just got these big gassy guys like, oh no more. So the king's been feasted upon, swallowed, surfeited. You know, this appears a lot in for example, the sonnets. You know, the post-coital disgust of after somebody's having sex. It's yuck, no more. Glutted, gorged, and full. That's good. So, and then he says right after that, he said, and in that very line, Harry, standest thou. So I think he's basically calling Hal a strumpet. Available, and the worst kind, right? Because we go on and it says, and not an eye, but a weary of thy common sight, save mine. The worst kind of strumpet, the one that sleeps with everyone except for you. So, does anyone know what the Coolidge effect is? It's evolutionary psychology. It comes up a lot there. It's so the story is that that President and Mrs. Coolidge were visiting a farm, and the farmer's all excited. He's walking around with Mrs. Coolidge and shows his his prize cock that's copulating with a series of hens. He's like, and he does that all day. And then Mrs. Coolidge goes, really? Tell that to my husband. So that's President Coolidge comes right along and shows him. And he's like, yeah. So your wife said that she wanted you to know that all day long this fowl copulates with these hens. And then President Coolidge looks up and says, well, tell her, is it the same hen? Because it's not, because the whole point is it's a series. So the novelty cue in birds and mammals, apparently, and apparently in humans, although no one will fund this study for ethical reasons. That novelty, you know, like switching girls, or cows or birds, you know, increases or sustains rather sexual desire, like the same same rooster would lose interest after copulating with one hen, and you know have to wait like 5 minutes or so. But you know none of that if you keep the hen supply. So it's weird to put your son in this sort of logic, right? So So the king realizes that the king must be desired by the people, which is cool. But I mean, is this the right kind? Is this the right kind to be desired? Because let's look at the situation. Let's map this on the situation as is. So because this is the advice that the king is giving Hal, and so this is where the king sees himself in our mimetic triangle. So he's making himself the object of desire. Yeah.
And I think that when he talks about peace, he's looking at himself as an object of pleasure and not someone the kingdom has a real relationship with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So would you put him here then?
Yeah.
All right. So we got the king here. And then he goes from here right on to doing what to gushing about Hotspur again, right? So I think that he kind of thinks that so who would be the dominant line? Yeah, I think that's what he's kind of what he's getting at, putting HS for Hotspur. And then so maybe Hal here then. So Hal's kind of where he's supposed to be, but everything else is kind of food. So and then things start getting really weird, because then he says, "For all the world, as thou art to this hour, was Richard then, when I from France set foot at Ravensport, and even as I was then is Percy now." So the way this should have been, we'll have to make another triangle, is the kingdom is where it's supposed to be. So Richard was the dominant Y then, but Hal's like him because Hal is to Richard, and then Hotspur is to Bolingbroke then. So this is now, and this is then. So then the kingdom is got to be Hal now, right? Or where else would he be now? This is why you've got to. This is why unpacking these things can take an entire class. That quiz took too long. So all right, we're gonna really. I can't believe how long this is taking. I'm sorry, and I, of course, move things along by digressing about how long it's taking. So this could be a problem because how are kind of I'm thinking of images of women in the play. So if you're going to put yourself in sort of this womanly position as the kingdom, so and what does Hotspur do? So let's go down on page 73. I need a king to read starting at discomfited. I think it's 114, and then just and what say you do this? This is 4 lines long. Yeah.
Discomfited great Douglas, taken him once, enlarged him and made a friend of him, to build him out of deep defiance up, and shake the peace and safety of our throne. And what say you to this?
Thank you. So, discomfited great Douglas, taken him once, enlarged him, and made a friend of him. What's happening? Discomfited, got him all hot and bothered, taken him, enlarged him.
I'm assuming because Douglas is one of the Scottish.
Yeah, Douglas is the one that.
I'm assuming he fought him because he was Scottish at some point, beaten him,
Yeah, enlarged him, and then made a
That
friend of
point
him.
back and then-
Yeah, and then now Douglas is on his team.
Yeah.
So what happened there? What does Henry want? What is he expecting Hotspur to do to him, and why? And why does he want Hal to do it instead? What's going on here? Yeah?
It literally sounds like
Or literarily.
sexual favors.
It really, I mean, enlarge it. I mean, so now maybe we can start to understand why, like, wow, there's something rotten in England, right? I mean, why the kingdom's not, why everybody's fighting in a manner that's very unbecoming of, the king is not getting his proper respect. I mean, he hid his treasures long enough. Yeah.
Are they like making it homoerotic because there's not many women?
I mean, I think that you can't say that it's not homoerotic, but I don't think that it's really about like some hot guy on guy action. I mean, it's been argued. I mean, I stand unconvinced, but I don't think that that's completely. I mean, it's in any sort of like male bonding thing. I mean, you could say that like big sweaty guys hugging each other in the shower after a game. Can you please put your phone away? Sorry. You could say that's kind of gay, but it's kind of not too, right? So I mean, however you want to read it.
Maybe that's why he doesn't like his wife as much. Or no,
He's into his horse. Hotspur's into his horse, and so it's like. So and then I mean this is the same. So we remember big guy Falstaff talking about dancing under the chaste moon Diana, and she was presiding over the shenanigans at night. And then we are very clearly shown that the shenanigans at night are sort of a microcosm of the shenanigans going on in the rebellion. So to make a short story long, he's sort of as opposed to Hal's famous imitating the sun, he's imitating the moon, which is a different thing than Hal does. So as an object, I said. Henry's able to arouse jealousy, but not, envy and fear. So people are jealous of his position, but nobody's afraid of him because he's just an object. Okay, now let's go back to the. We were supposed to read this, page 15. The imitate the sun. Oh, goodness. And really, we're not even halfway done with the lecture. Okay, so can I get someone starting at yet and ending at strangle? You don't have to read it well, you just have to read it. So 15, sorry. You've already gone, let's give you a shot.
Yet herein will I imitate the sun, who doth permit the base contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world, that, when he please again to be himself, being wanted, he may be more wondered at by breaking through the foul and ugliness of vapors that would seem to strangle him.
Okay, thank you. So we've got this novelty thing going on again, right? And so this is the first part. So what I'm picturing is the sun, who brings the base contagious clouds in front of him to smother up his beauty. Beauty's the word. That when he please again to be himself, being wanted because he's behind the clouds, he may be more wondered at, sort of peeking around. Picture the big flamingo-colored clouds. Breaking through the foul and ugly mists. Okay, so we've got a little kind of striptease going on here, right? So, and then so we get this. Is it kind of like what Dad was saying, right? A little bit, except for kind of the opposite, because Dad was like, keep the big flamingo things over you, and then he's going back into this logic of novelty and keeping yourself fresh, and then we've got in all the year we're playing holidays to sport would be as tedious as to work. So has anyone experienced this? Like if you just party all day and day. eventually you just get sick of it, and you kind of just want to do something else. I never have. I've heard of things. So I mean, he's got, you know, he's aware of things. You know, obviously Hal didn't need to, or the king didn't need to give him the talk. Kind of a lowering the bar, what somebody said last time. Exceeding expectation by contrast, but at the very least, you know, calculating a theatrical effect. And then when this loose behavior I throw off and pay the debt I never promised, how much better than my word am I, and so much shall I falsify men's hopes, and like the bright metal on a sullen ground, my reformation glittering over my fault shall show more goodly and attract more eyes than that which hath no foil to set it off. Something different now, right? So you're throwing off the loose behavior. So you're acting a little iffish, but then you throw off the loose behavior, and this is a complete break in the logic to me. You know, like now we're stepping out of throwing off the acting like a strumpet, but then not acting like a strumpet. Now, would this work for women in our evolutionary psychology logic?
No, because he's not actually destructive. So.
Right. Unless he was just faking it. But still, I mean, if everybody still thinks. But I think we're shifting. I think we're shifting gears here. And you know the Freudian kettle joke. It's the neighbor brings his neighbor to court for he lent him a kettle and he broke it. And the neighbor's defense is, I never borrowed it. I returned it unbroken. It had a hole in it when he gave it to me. But it's giving 3 different excuses, which are fine in themselves, but all taken together just shows that you're just throwing excuses at the wall. So I think that we might have a little bit of that going on. I mean, to me it seems kind of confused. I don't understand the logic of it. Unless, so it's the sun, not the moon, so it's different, and he calls himself he. Does that really change it? But like I said, you know, it seems kind of like a striptease. It's, you know, both the king and he appeal to wonder, which is desire, but is it the same desire? And remember in the mimetic triangle, we have 2 kinds of desire at work, right? We've got this desire for the object and the desire for the desire.
Maybe he himself doesn't know if it was trick or if he meant to do it, and so now it's kind of like an after-the-fact reasoning, like you were saying earlier.
Possibly. Let's look at the at 208 through 211 again. If all the year were playing holidays, to sport would be as tedious as to work. So instead of saying just what not to do, at this point, you know, Hal's trying to figure out a way to become the unlooked-for accident of, but when they seldom come, they wished for come, and nothing pleaseth but rare accidents. So this is a twist that he's putting on that the king didn't. It's something positive. Instead of just being modest, it's like, right, make yourself something novel instead of just, you know, something that people catcall at in the parade. And so again, that last part, we're getting a different logic, and I really like to spend a lot of time on it, but we've got to kind of keep going. Right, no, we've got to. We might as well do it. So he's falsifying men's hopes. That's important. So it's this reform. So it starts off with the striptease, but you don't want to striptease every day. So you bring yourself out and then you reform. In what genre do we like people that misbehave but then are transformed? Think of literary genres. Think of trash literary genres with Fabio and muscles. This is a romance hero, right? We're moving out of strumpet land to the reformed rake, right? So can somebody just give me the plot of a romance real quick, if you don't want to out yourself?
Boy meets girl and boy hate each other. The guy redeems himself in some way, and then they fall in love and have passionate sex.
Right. Exactly. So and somebody describe to me, and think just the trashy romances. You know, give me a trashy romance hero. What does he look like? I've got a. There's been a study done. I will tell you that the characteristics. Nice butt. Big, strong, rebellious, rowdy, crooked jaw. Crooked jaw is something. Big loins. Not making this up. It's the idea of the alpha male, right? So he's not a nice guy, right? He's not modest. He's not right. He's bad. He's alpha. Is he typically chaste? Is he a virgin? Is virginity something that we're looking for in romance heroes? No, we want him experienced, right? So I mean, and pretty much they're always kind of players and rakes, and it's like the bigger the player and the rake, like so how does this work? Like does this mean that that women want guys that are promiscuous and will cheat on them? Do we think? I think probably not. I mean, that's kind of weird, right? I mean, I guess some people are into that, but it's not. That's not how the romances typically turn out.
You want to be the exception, the one that can change them.
Right. So it's the thing. It's a great. There's this this fabulous book called "Smart Bitch's Guide to Reading Romance." It's Beyond Heaving Bosoms. It's great. I love it. But it explains all that. So in the romances play on what psychologists who study the genre, and it's studied by psychologists, the cue of irresistibility, which apparently is some sort of like feminine thing that's like some sort of big, like the you want to be like irresistible, which is why in romances, like unlike in real life, in romances it's okay for the romance hero to rape the heroine, because it's not really like a creepy real life rape. What it is, it's just it's a the alpha male, guy of the dreams that's just, so masculine that he just can't be stopped, and I'm just so irresistible that it's just, and we all know from rape training that's not the way real life rape works. but do they still make you do that? When I was a freshman, you had to take a don't rape the co-eds class. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. And we just. All right. Well, I'll return the quizzes after I want to finish this. So the logic of the rape fantasy. Don't think rape fantasy. Think like Jane Austen's Darcy, right? So the idea is the pleasure received is more than the pleasure that you could possibly expect. Like I expect this much pleasure, but the fantasy is even more pleasure, right? So do you see how this is starting to play into what Hal's saying? And so Hal's positioning himself as a romance hero because the bigger the jerk, the bigger the conquest, the better the fantasy, right? Because if you're just a complete screwball and like what Candy Tan and the other who wrote the Beyond Heaving Bosoms called the magic hoo-hoo. The magic hoo-hoo is so powerful that even the strongest errant male desire gets pulled into orbit. Right, and so like the bigger the jerk, the bigger the conquest, the better the fantasy. So this is exactly what Hal's doing. He's being a complete jerk. So he's putting the country right back where it belongs in the Commonwealth, right? And he's the dominant Y, and everybody else has to quiver at his alphaness. Okay, I guess that's it.